Now to this new fight to take politics out of your 401k. The Biden administration has an environment, social, and governance rule, which stands for ESG, for retirement plans that went into effect just this week. It basically allows Wall Street base investments on issues other than profits. Now, every Republican senator and Democrat Senator Joe Manchin are introducing a bill that tries to scrap that Biden rule once and for all. Senator Manchin is Republican colleague Mike Braun out of Indiana with me now. Senators, good morning to both of you. I mean, America, take a picture of this. You got a Democrat and Republican coming together on the issue. Nice to see. I don't know.
We're friends. We're friends.
Senator Manchin,
friends to boot.
I don't know. Ohio's the only thing that separates you two geographically. I don't know if you can stop it, but can you?
Well, let me tell you one thing. Mike and I have been talking this morning about that. Mike took off with this piece of legislation. I'm proud to be a partner with him. I think it's the right thing to do. When you start putting ESG and basically making evaluations on the environmental impacts, I think we all have a responsibility, and we've done a good job on that. We've reduced our emissions by more than any other country in the free world. So with that being said, then why don't they take a geopolitical risk that's involved? Why don't you evaluate that too? Why don't you ask Europe what's happened to them? Ask Germany what's happened to their economy. Look at what Putin did to weaponized energy. The geopolitical risk should be evaluated the same as anything else, because the fallout would be, if you're trying to put pressure and get rid of fossil before we have anything to replace it, you are going to damage our economy and make our country much weaker. That's what I've been fighting for, energy security. So geopolitical risk should be evaluated just as much as they're talking ESG.
You know, Senator, the problem with it makes too much sense. Senator Braun, when you talk about a fiduciary when it comes to investing, they're supposed to do the right thing on behalf of their investors. And if you have programs that are related to the environment or the government and they outperform other markets, then fine, go for it. But if they underperform, you are not living up to your own fiduciary ability for your investors.
To me, this is a dangerous navigation, because they've done a 5-year study that 2.5% differential in the return on these funds, where you're emphasizing ESG versus what is the best return, affects 152 million Americans in their retirement 401ks, about 12 trillion. Do the math, 2.5% on 12 trillion. You should not be burdened with trying to push any political agenda where you're going to impact the hard earnings that you give to someone else in trust that you're going to make the right decision. To me, it's shameful, and it's that heavy overreach that you get from the federal government. Executive branch, in this case, Department of Labor, this is our only tool. Congressional Review Act, it's a challenge to say, hey, back off. I did it with the vaccine mandate that was going to force you to get a vaccine. Joe joined on that as well. Common sense. That's government gone wild.
Okay, there's a new rule went into effect.
Bill, if I could mention one thing, they're talking about trying to accelerate getting rid of fossil. The market will tell you when there's something to replace the fossil and the horsepower that comes from the coal, the gas, and the oil that we do cleaner than anywhere in the world. The market will move when the market's ready to move and replace it. We're not ready yet. And for the administration to move in and accelerate that before we're ready just puts our economy in jeopardy, and also the return on investment that people need for their retirement.
Fair point. I've heard you make it before, especially when you reflect on your own constituents back in West Virginia. Meanwhile, you got this debt fight. I don't know what comes of it. Kevin McCarthy yesterday, here's what he said at the White House when he left the meeting with the president.
So now is a moment in time. We've got 5 more months. I've just walked out having an hour conversation with this president that I tell you in perspective was a good conversation. No agreements, no promises, except we will continue this conversation.
Okay, so that was from yesterday. This is from this morning at the prayer breakfast with the president. This is what he said about the meeting.
That's what Kevin and I are going to do. Not a joke. We had a good meeting yesterday. I think we got to do it across the board. Doesn't mean we're going to agree and fight like hell, but let's treat each other with respect.
Okay, now are we going to live up to that, right? Our Fox polling finds this: Republicans and Democrats both believe that they are extremely or very concerned about political divisions. You're at 68%. Senator Braun, go first. How's it going to end up?
So, in the time I've been here, which is roughly 4 years, let's look at the magnitude. 18 trillion debt. When I got here, now we're 31. This is no laughing matter. When you take the fact that interest rates have gone up 4%. Start doing the math on 31 trillion. We've got to address it. It takes political will to do it. I'm on the budget committee, which we don't use anymore. Don't use regular order. That's the way it used to work, Joe. You used to flesh it out in committees, not get up to these thresholds where they use deadlines to force whatever the political agenda is. And it's been on both sides. This debt is accumulated over a long period of time. It's just gotten way out of control.
Well, hey, Bill, on the whole thing, on the debt thing, first of all, I know both men. Kevin and I had a nice conversation a couple weeks ago, and I think he's most reasonable taking an approach. Can't we at least recognize 31.5 trillion is unmanageable, and we should be passing on to our children and grandchildren? We're writing checks they can't cash. And I know the president's personality. You put those two in a room, I knew they could get along. I'm very hopeful this is going to work out without any drama or any theatrics. The bottom line is, Mike said it was $18 million when he came. It was $13 trillion of debt when I came on board, and it continues to grow. I've been told that if we just did our job on time, and why won't we look at this, get our budget done. When the president gives his State of the State address, like governors, and Mike will be the next governor of Indiana, when that happens, they basically put your budget there. They work towards that. If we got ours done on September 30th, I'm told that we could reduce the spending by as much as maybe 5 to 10% across the board. Just doing our job on time. Shouldn't we look at that?
Senators, thank you both for coming on today and doing it together as a pair. And I think if America saw more of this, it might have more faith in what's happening on the Hill and in Washington, D.C. throughout. Senator Manchin, Senator Braun, thank you for your time today. And
My pleasure.
We'll be in contact very soon again. Thanks.
Absolutely.
Dana.